oppose any efforts to undermine religious liberty. Ted has kept those promises and every other promise he has made to the people of Texas. And it's with that trust that he's earned that he's going to move forward and unite our party. You see, too many people throughout this country have been told over and over again by the political establishment in Washington, D.C., that our best days are behind us, that we simply have to settle for the status quo, that we have to settle for sluggish economic growth, we have to settle for more of the same, business as usual in Washington. Ted doesn't believe you have to settle. Ted doesn't believe you should settle. You see, there is a big difference between confusion and confidence, and Ted is difference. There is a big difference between platitudes and a plan. Ted is that difference. There is a big difference between slogans and substance, and Ted is that difference. So it's time for us to recognize that we don't have to settle anymore. Don't settle. Don't settle for slogans that can fit on a bumper sticker. Expect substance. Don't settle for a federal government that is overbearing at home and projects weakness abroad. Expect a federal government that will protect you and respect your rights. It's time, my fellow Americans, to expect more. It's time to expect freedom. It's time to elect Ted Cruz as the next president of the United States. You know, when we look at this presidential election cycle, one of the many things that comes to mind is the fact that with the recent death of the late Justice Antonin Scalia, a lot of people wonder who is going to fill that vacancy on the Supreme Court. Who's going to fill that role, and who's going to name the person who will fill that role? It's one of the great things about Ted Cruz is that Americans can proceed with great confidence that Ted Cruz will pick an absolutely outstanding person to fill Antonin Scalia's position on the Supreme Court of the United States. They can also stand with great confidence that this is a man who believes in his own family, has stood with his own family. I have enjoyed getting to know Ted and his wife Heidi and their daughters Catherine and Caroline. I've seen Ted stand with them and for them. I've seen him stand with and for his father and for and with his mother. And you know, he will stand for you. He will stand for every mother and father and son and daughter in America. He will do what he said. He will speak the truth, just as he has in the United States Senate. And so today, I call on all within the sound of my voice to join me in this cause, to look forward to the first 100 days of a Ted Cruz presidency, 100 days that will be marked by reform, a reform that will restore the greatness of our economic mobility society. We've seen in recent years our economic mobility society has been in danger. We see the poor and the middle class being held back. We see economic opportunity in America fading as there are more and more backroom deals that serve only to enrich and further empower those incumbents who were already enriched and already empowered. Ted Cruz will work to undo that and to restore the greatness of the American people, to put the power back where it belongs, which is with the people. It's time, my fellow Americans, and in particular today, my fellow Republicans, to unite behind one candidate. That candidate is Ted Cruz.
Hey, Senator, what took you so long to endorse Ted Cruz, and what kind of a signal are you sending with this endorsement to somebody you called your good friend, Marco Rubio?
I'm sending the signal that it's time to unite. The time has finally come. The time is finally at hand when we as Republicans need to unite behind one leader.
So should Senator Rubio drop out? Is that what you're saying?
You know, everyone will have to make that choice. If Senator Rubio were asking me that, I would encourage him, and I do encourage him, to get behind Ted Cruz.
Did you talk to Senator Rubio?
Yes. Senator Rubio and I speak on a very regular basis.
Did you tell him about this decision?
Yes.
What was his reaction?
You know, that's a private conversation that's between the two of us.
What would be your description of what
First of all, my focus here is on why I support Ted Cruz. I'm not here to trash talk any other candidate, including the one you mentioned. I will say that the candidate you mentioned is someone about whom I have many questions. I'm still waiting to hear a lot of things that I still don't know about what motivates Donald Trump, about what informs his policy positions, about what his policy positions actually are on a whole host of issues. And I don't have answers to almost any of those questions.
Senator, you're now the first colleague in the Senate to endorse Ted Cruz. And Marco Rubio's got the lion's share of Republican endorsements out of the Senate. What do you have to say to your colleagues, and why are they wrong?
Well, first of all, the overwhelming majority of Republican senators have not endorsed anyone. I expect that will change, and I expect that I'll be the first of many Republican senators who will endorse Ted Cruz. I'm confident that more are on the way, and I welcome others to join me.
Why Senator, why not a month ago?
Senator, back to Haley's question. Almost everything you said on behalf of Senator Cruz, you could have said 3 or 4 months ago. What took you so long to get to this point? Walk us through that evolution. And do you believe, I know you want to trash talk, but Senator Cruz has said Donald Trump is unfit to be the nominee and unfit to be president. You're endorsing him. Do you agree with that? And if so, why?
As to the first part of your question, again, I was waiting, looking for the right moment when it was time to unite.
Why is this the right moment?
Things have aligned. Senator Cruz has spoken to the American people, and the American people in state after state have chosen him. In some of those states he's come in first, and others he hasn't. But he's got a building groundswell of support that is unmistakable. There were a lot of people who initially said it was for him to do what he set out to do. And then people just said it was unlikely. And now they're starting to see that it's unstoppable. And he truly is unstoppable. That's why I think it's time for us to unite behind him.
What about Donald Trump and his fitness for either the nomination or the presidency?
I'm sorry?
What about Donald Trump and his fitness either to be your party's nominee or president of the United States?
Well,
Cruz has said he's unfit for both.
Yeah, I'm not here to say that. I'm here to talk about my support for Ted Cruz. And I'll repeat what I said earlier. I'm still waiting to hear more detail from Donald Trump on where he stands on a whole host of issues, and just as importantly, on how he views government power, how he interprets various provisions of the Constitution, his views on federalism, on separation of powers. I'd like to hear more substance from him. I don't think I can make that determination based on the information that he's given us so far.
What kind of role will you play, Senator, trying to convince your colleagues?
Monday? Ted Cruz es mi amigo. Somos amigos, trabajamos juntos. Es un placer conocerle y es un placer recomendarle a él, a la gente americana.
¿Por qué lo está haciendo?
Porque es mi amigo y porque él es el líder que nos puede guiar.
What kind of a role will you play, if any at all, in trying to convince your colleagues in Congress to back Senator Cruz like you are?
You know, the same way that I try to influence my colleagues on anything else, on legislation, on a speech I think somebody ought to give, just person to person, talking to them about what their plans are.
Have you started that process yet?
This has been an ongoing process. This is, I don't want to say a parlor game, but this is a frequent topic of conversation among Republican senators. We talk about where the presidential election is going.
Why do you believe Ted Cruz is unstoppable, as you just said?
Republican candidate who can defeat Donald Trump and who can defeat Hillary Clinton, and I believe he will.
Senator, you called Trump unstoppable. You say that Cruz is the only one who you believe can defeat Donald Trump. Do you believe that your endorsement, along with other senators, uniting? Yes, you guys are uniting, but do you believe that's enough, especially in this election, to stop Trump?
No one person, no one effort is enough to bring about the result that we want, but there are lots of efforts on the part of a lot of people in a lot of states from a lot of different backgrounds that I believe are going to bring us to that end.
Does it have to
One
then
more
go to
question,
a
guys.
convention at this point?
What's that?
Do you expect that the nomination will be decided only at the convention at this point?
I think it's too early to predict that, Carl. I wouldn't say we're to that point. I think a clear leader could still emerge in the field, and someone could get to the